number 2. Okay, in the AHL, it's 70 for Binghamton.
Good old Binghamton Senators.
Syracuse 62, Lehigh Valley 60, and those are some of the teams you would expect.
They always have tough teams.
Binghamton always has a tough team. Mm-hmm. Syracuse always has a tough team. Lehigh Valley, that used to be the Adirondack Phantoms last year. That's the Flyers affiliate. So yeah, of course you're going to expect them to be tough.
Said Hamilton's another team you'd expect.
Hamilton,
they're coming at number 8. They usually have. Whenever you see Amerks games where there's fights, it's usually Hamilton or Syracuse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Binghamton.
I didn't really see too many Binghamton games, but I've seen a lot of
Rochester is 26th.
With 25.
Which is 25. It's not really a part of the Amerks game this year.
But that's still more than most NHL teams. And it's not part of our game.
It is. It's too. And speaking of the Amerks, they had a huge week. Theo, I know you're a big Amerks fan. They had a big week. 6 out of 8 possible points on the road. They beat Chicago in that day game on Tuesday, and then Friday they went to Grand Rapids, took them to overtime, lost in overtime. Saturday in Grand Rapids again, they beat them in overtime, and then Sunday they lost to Milwaukee in overtime. So 3 overtime games, and they won 2 of them.
Oh man, I will say, even though...
So they're 9 points out of a playoff spot.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like it's not down and out.
Right, 9 points out of a playoff spot. I think they're done. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're too inconsistent. Mm-hmm. The types of games that they're winning or competing in are these crazy 6-5, 8-7 games, okay? Mm-hmm. They're not. The mark of a good team is a team that can win that 4-2 game or that 3-1 game or that 2-0 game. They're not. They're coming. The only points they're getting, they're coming from behind, and it's never good to play from behind.
It's never good to let in a lot of goals consistently. It shows lapse defensively.
And 9 points is a lot to make up in 27 games.
It's not impossible, but like you said, it's a tall order.
Oh, I gave him the wrong number again.
Who's this? Bellamy?
Yeah, our guest. How many times have I done this? Twice now?
It's happened.
So yeah, we should have Corey, the last of the hockey enforcers, calling in.
Now, part of the problem is he doesn't have a Facebook page.
He has a Twitter though, which is how I found him.
He has a pretty good hockey player.
All right, so John, before we get Corey on the line, where are you on this fighting thing? If you had to say right now, should there still be fighting in professional hockey?
Well, the way I see it is fighting is one of those things that has more than entertainment value in hockey. It was a way that players see to sort of police the game on their own accord, which is unique to hockey, somewhat to lacrosse, to box lacrosse, but more so to hockey. I mean, NLL is kind of taking it out of the game. If you watch Ontario Lacrosse League or actual box lacrosse, you'll see more fighting in it, kind of like hockey. But I think that makes hockey unique, that they have that aspect. However, the game is changing.
Yeah, go on.
The game is changing, and with changing times come changes. So I do think that we have a lot more science to back up these hits to the head. We didn't understand that before.
Right.
We really didn't know just how bad these head injuries could be. And now that we know that, I think it might be responsible to at least look at it. I wouldn't say take it out of the game completely per se.
What do you mean by just look at it?
Well, we need to acknowledge it, and we need to study it. We need to study people. We need to study the fact that it's something that occurs. We need to, take better care of the players. But to tell them they can't do something that they're willing to do, that they're paid a lot of money to do, per se. That's
a good point.
We don't want to be, it's not the mommy league.
That's a good point. So last year, a group of former NHL players filed a class action lawsuit against the NHL.
I heard about that.
Now, this followed a class action lawsuit that was filed by NFL players against the NFL. Now, I think the NHL players said, hey, we also had these post-concussion symptoms. We had these head injuries. The league didn't do anything about it. They didn't care about us, and they said that they glorified violence in the NHL, and they still do, and they did it at the expense of the health of the players.
Yeah, but you gotta, even though that's true, it is a contact sport. It is a rough game.
Right.
And players kind of do have to take accountability for getting into these fights and for playing this game. You know it's a rough game. You got to take accountability for playing it.
Right. So now here's the thing that that you mentioned. Okay, the NHL can argue, and it says this in this article, that the players voluntarily
Yeah, no one's forcing
drop
them
the
to
gloves.
do that. It's technically a penalty. It's
Right,
not
it is.
legal
It's technically
to do.
illegal. Yeah, it's technically a 5-minute penalty.
They're not forcing them to do it. Anyone who gets into a fight who drops the gloves is a willing combatant. Now, if you're unwilling, if somebody roughs you, hits you with a glove or starts fighting you, that's a penalty as well. So it's not like they're pushing fighting on players. So I think that this is kind of an interesting debate. Nobody wants to have, these. I mean, we saw 4, former enforcers die within a few months, a few years ago.
And which is sad. And
it's very sad.
And
These
it shows you
people's
that there's something wrong there.
Yeah. So, I mean, something does need to be done, but it's kind of hard to say.
Is this Corey?
This is Corey.
Corey Bellamy.
Hey,
Thank you. Welcome to
Corey.
Rochester Sports Mumblings. I apologize. I gave you the wrong number. It was 1 digit off. Small detail, but very important.
Little things.
Thank you for joining us. We are a sports show out of Rochester, New York. I know you're in Huntsville, Alabama right now, which is you're probably
warmer.
better off than being in Massachusetts, where you guys just got 3 feet of snow.
I know, my parents are buried right now. It's crazy.
It's insane. I mean, we got what, 14, 18 inches up here, John?
Still coming down,
Still
too.
coming down, but yeah, I can't believe it. I saw the map, and it's like it's just all coming down in Massachusetts. Crazy
It's
stuff.
unbelievable, man. I miss it a little bit, but it's good not to be driving around in that stuff down here.
Right. Well,
what's the temperature like down there in
oh
Huntsville?
God, in Alabama, yeah, you're gonna make us
It was like
sick
50,
right now.
60 today.
Oh my God, 60 degrees in
Nice.
February, unbelievable. So you are from Massachusetts. You are. We were calling you before we got you on the phone here. I don't know. Maybe one of the last American enforcers. You're a dying breed, and we've been having this discussion about what is the role of fighting in hockey in 2015, because I think it's obvious to everyone that the role is changing, and who better to talk to than someone who obviously is right in it. You have 240 penalty minutes in 35 games this year, so I don't think there's a lot of argument about what your role is, and you're a big dude, 6'1", 185. How do you see your role? Do you call yourself an enforcer, or do people call you a goon? Do you call yourself a goon?
I mean, for me in my league, I'm probably one of the more respected fighters. I mean, anybody that asks me to fight, I'll fight them. But for mostly for me, yeah, I would call myself an enforcer, but I feel like I police the game a little bit more than anything. I'm not really, like if someone's doing something stupid or going around, you need to tell them that, they either need to calm it down or I'm going to fight them, or you got to just do it. So, there's a lot of that, and then, if the team's not playing too well and we need a spark, and then, there's the other option. So, fights can happen a couple different ways, but there's both meaning to them, and some guys lose the reality of that, and some guys just fight, you know what I mean? And I'm more of the guy that wants to fight because of the reason to do it,
So that's an interesting point. It seems like the days of the staged fight, as they were called, at least in the upper levels in the NHL and the AHL, is kind of going away slowly but surely. Especially in the NHL, it's pretty much gone.
Yeah, what you're seeing in the NHL nowadays is someone hitting their goalie and a scrum happening in front, and then they drop them. Or, you got Zach Ronaldo fighting whoever from the, someone he's fought in the previous cast. The setup fights are happening, but right now, midway through the season of the playoffs, everyone's in the hunt for a playoff spot. So there's not a lot of fights happening. That happens out of a scrum. You know what I mean?
So as far as you said, getting the crowd riled up, is that still something that does work as a tactic, or getting the team riled up?
100%.
It does. Okay.
Especially in a league like this. I'm fortunate to play in Huntsville. It's probably the best place to play in the Southern Professional Hockey League. So, on any given Saturday night, we have 3,000 to 6,000 people in the stands, and when we're down 2-1 and we have a flat crowd, I mean, I'm dropping the gloves. You know what I mean? And that's just the reality of it. I love it. I love getting the team going, and the crowd gets into it, and the building's electric. So, I mean, it's hard for me to even stay away from it, even if, the consequences got worse. I mean, I'd still be doing the same thing, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So that's a good question. They, of course, in the AHL and the NHL, they put in a new rule. I don't know if you guys have this yet in the Southern League, that you can't take your helmet off before a fight. Do they have that now?
Right.
They do. In the
They
Southern...
have it down here, but, I mean, I'd say I have 19 fight majors this year, or 18 fight majors, and I'd say 15 of them I've taken my helmet off before the fight.
So you just don't care? Take the 7 minutes?
I mean, you just get an extra 2 minutes on top of your fight.
So how does that happen? Like, do you kind of look at your opponent and you guys both kind of are like, screw it, we're both going to sit for 7?
I'm a lighter heavyweight, but I mean, every guy I fight in the league is a heavyweight. So I mean, nobody wants to be punching helmets. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be easy to break your hand, right?
Factor.
It's got to be easy to break your hand on a helmet, right?
Right. I mean, I have broken my hand on a helmet. That's the thing.
How about punching visors? Like, that's got to be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, when I was down in the Federal League 3 years ago, I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of guys wouldn't take their helmets off, and it was just a struggle to get people's buckets off. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot different in the Federal League here. I mean, there's not a lot of similarities in the hockey, and I mean, obviously in the Federal League there's a lot more fighting and gooning up.
Yeah. That's one of I'm fascinated by the Federal League because it's named after the movie, after Slapshot.
Yeah.
I was living down in Brooklyn a couple years ago, and I worked the penalty box for some games for the Aviators, and it was, it was kind of an S show, a lot of games, and but I was just fascinated by it because it was just this really low, kind of hilarious minor league in a lot of ways. What was it like playing there?
I mean, it was definitely tough. I mean, don't get me wrong, it got me to where I am now in the Southern Pro League, and I'm grateful for it, but, I mean, it hasn't cleaned up at all. I mean, we've gotten called up here all year. We've got 3 or 4 guys come through Huntsville this year from the Federal League. We have a defenseman on our team, Frank Schumacher. He's actually was a great pickup from Danbury.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, yeah, even hearing it from those guys, I mean, it's just getting 5 teams in the league, and there's always a team folding, like that Steel City team.
Yeah.
It's like, they're just keeping that team in the league right now just so the kids can keep their visas, because if there's 4 teams in the league, they can't have visas.
Wait, what? Hold on, what?
Yeah.
Explain this one to me.
Oh, man.
Yeah, like, if there's 4 teams in a professional hockey league,
okay,
you can't have imports. Half the league's from Canada,
Oh, okay.
So if there was a team that folded right now in the Federal League, all the visas would be void.
Wow. Okay.
So like Danbury, Danville, Dayton, all those teams are paying for that Steel City team to stay alive.
Really?
And they're only paying like 8 or 9 of their guys $175 a week. All the other players are making like $25 a game.
Wow.
Like, some of the stories I've heard are pretty crazy, man. And it's like, obviously kids aren't doing it for the money, but, I mean, it comes to a point where, like, come on. Like,
yeah. Is that league, are there any,
those games count. Those games count towards professional games.
It's true, yeah.
So,
yeah. Are there any...
Go ahead.
Are there any guys in that league that are like... let's say they've been playing men's league their whole life, since they were 18, and they're like, hey, I'm going to give this a shot.
Is this your way of trying to get on the Federal Hockey League?
No, it's not, John. But are there guys like that you saw that were in their 30s that were like, hey, I want to play pro hockey?
There's a couple, man. There's a couple. Yeah. There's a kid that was actually in camp in Huntsville this year.
Uh-huh.
Not playing hockey when he was 20.
Uh-huh.
And he's 27 now.
Wow.
And he's playing on that Steel City team.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's possible.
I guess it is. I mean, hey, you know what? If I could play pro hockey for $25 a game, I would play.
And you'd be in your favorite
Right,
league.
and that's the reality of it. If guys
Yeah.
want to make that sacrifice, I mean, hey, all the power to you.